Welcome to Human with Delta Forks. I'm Delta Forks, and I'm here with my lovely guest, Michael LeBlanc, aka Sittin with You.
Hello.
So, how's your day going?
So far so good. You wake up in the South and you're already obliged to have a breakfast of grits, probably some other starch like toast, and then eggs on top. So it was very filling. Also made by my lovely wife who cooks grits a lot better than I do. She flavors them better. I have a better texture. She flavors
Mhm.
them better. It's a good start to the day, man. What about you?
I let myself sleep in past 9 o'clock today, which is rare.
Hmm.
On my days off, I normally get up at 9. I haven't eaten breakfast because I'm doing intermittent fasting right now. So,
Okay. What's your how long are you off on? Like what's your numbers?
I'm on from 11 to 7.
Okay. That's not
So,
bad.
it's worked okay so far. Delta Forks by nature is a fat joke at myself, so I'll take it. Well, it's a military themed fat joke. I ran it by my veteran friends; they all laughed.
Nice.
So here's a philosophy question:
Oh,
Are you familiar with the dream argument?
I don't think I am. By all means,
So,
enlighten me.
so the dream argument is, from what I know of it, because I studied philosophy as a minor in college.
Okay.
I was that kind of nerd. So the dream argument was come up by the Greeks about 2,000 plus years ago,
All right.
and to my knowledge, it's never been solved. Prove to me that you're not dreaming.
Oh. Okay, so this is the originator version of simulation.
Kind of,
The
yeah.
simulation argument, kind of. Yeah, like definitely less techno, more organic, more within the mind. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure how you would go about that for the simple reason that there are arguments on people experiencing the same thing in completely different ways, but we'll never know because the way that we've been told how to describe things is so singular. It's so relatively two-dimensional.
Hmm.
Because we hear the words, we have to process them. The only thing you can really pull from that's different is like inflection or anything like that. Um, So I can't think of one particular way right now that says, hey, we're not dreaming, both wake up, except for the fact that maybe, and this is a maybe, the fact that we are both having a cogent conversation back and forth and we both understand each other. Like that, I feel like if we started talking to each other and the other person did not make sense, but we both seem to be nodding in agreement, I think that's where the kind of barriers would break down, but I don't know. What do you think?
So the kicker to this argument, or the counter to this argument, is a little bit of Descartes, but it's also a argument full of just logical fallacies. Like, this is a dream that you can have a cogent, conversation.
Okay.
So I think there's a reason. It's like the Gordian knot of philosophical arguments, where it's just a bitch and a half.
Sure.
But it's always interesting. It's kind of like the philosophical definition of zombies. I spoke with Sam Simmons about that. I think you've met him
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah. Recent
Uh,
friend of mine, and we hit it off pretty well. Sam's a good guy.
yeah, it's
What is this about zombies?
the philosophical concept of zombies. Just to be quick about it, is that not everyone you meet is sentient.
Okay.
So it's the presumption that not every human has like a sense of consciousness. They're
Oh,
basically
okay.
some people are just animals.
You know, I feel like the older I get, the more I kind of realize the side of that argument.
Mhm.
Yeah, like because when you're younger, you just assume that everybody's kind of like rolling along the same kind of level of consciousness you are. Then like you either become a part of a bigger identity, or say like the military, or you become part of like the community, the local community, and then you start to realize some of these people are just they're rolling around on their own one track. Just
They're rolling around on instinct, and that's
yeah.
basically it.
Oof. Ah. Okay, that's cool.
So,
So we've been live all of 5 minutes, and I've learned two things from you. Delta, this is amazing. I'm only supposed to learn one new thing a day,
mm,
dude. You gotta You gotta pump the. Let's talk about Pokemon for a second. Let's just go dumb first. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, let's not. I spend too much time worrying about Pokemon. I'm a big fan of Pokemon Go.
Mm.
Especially here recently, it's been forcing me to go outside and get sunshine.
Hey, it's a reason.
It is. But I'm starting to realize that it's way more of a stats game than it was when I first picked it up. Because I'm around for the I was around for the OG.
Mm.
You know, Ash and Pikachu and whatnot. Those were the days where I was thinking that everybody was like that too. Uh, they were not. I was like one of three kids in my school who was about Pokemon before it
Before I
kicked
get
off.
popular.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, so Delta Forks, tell me a little bit about you. I know this is kind of like flipping the script, it's your show, but I'm asking you a question. Um we've kind of got to know each other
Mm.
over social media platform. I think you I don't know if you know Sam more than I do, but I've seen there's been a good bit of content that's been coming out with you and Sam. So and that's what I know about you. That and the mask. That's what is Delta Forks?
Well, as so Delta Forks is a name, and I may have, I don't know if I said this before we started recording, but it's a joke. It's a self-inflicted joke. Um,
Sometimes
so
those are the best.
those are the best, and if that's my superpower that I can ever have been given, it's that I am better at making fun of myself than anybody else is. I take very little serious. And to answer your question about Sam, I've known Sam since I was 15.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a little older than him, not much. But I had like, so it's very strange. I'm either really good at like script writing or question writing, but you guessed my next question. Uh, so it's I don't know that I'm that complex of a person.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might just be that I'm really bad at talking about myself. It's probably a little of the second one. But I put on my pants both legs at a time.
Nice. Jump straight
So
in. I love it.
yeah, it's just you jump right off off. Yeah, it's I try not to overthink it. Life is about the present.
Sure.
The past is dead, and the future doesn't exist yet.
Right. I mean, that's why it's called the present, right? It's a gift to us.
Yeah,
I used that during my live yesterday, and it at least tickled the fancies of three people who were watching. 3 out of the 5.
it's I think that phrase got popular. What, Kung Fu Panda or something like
I
that
think
is what
so.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've known it since I was a kid. Uh, it's yeah. I don't. There's I guess what I use the whole the past is dead and the future doesn't exist yet. That's a little more off putting, but I feel it's more true.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
mean it's concise. It really helps to kind of set yourself towards, if there's nothing else to pay attention to, by all means pay attention to what you're doing now.
right.
Which is very recent, something that I've started doing when it comes to creation. Because I think it was right around the time where I told myself I was going to write my first book. And I did. Got it done I got the first draft done within like 2 months, and then I was like, wait, is this what focusing feels like? I'm 38 years old, starting to try to really figure that out. And then I was like, well, I did this, and then I gave myself a year to edit it, and I published it, and I'm like, this feels really good. So I've been like, there's schedules, of course, and that kind of sets a path towards the future, but I never really like put them like etched in stone. And so each day is like, can I go a little bit further? Yes, I can. Instead, because if I don't do that, then I wind up emotionally kicking my own ass, right?
Mm.
Because if you're constantly looking towards the future and you don't actually reach that point, it almost feels like a failure.
Mm.
And so I give myself a little grace. I work by a loose schedule, and damn if I haven't, like, you're gonna be the last episode of my podcast, man. And I've started for season 1.
Mm.
And
I'll take
this
it.
is gonna be like, it's gonna be the most completed projects I've done since I knew that I wanted to start creating things. And it's all because I'm paying attention to what I'm doing now. So, dude, I feel you.
Yeah, for sure. And as someone with that has had ADHD since I was a kid.
Mm.
Focus and willpower. I'm doing this right now. Don't bother me. Hyperfocus. It's hyperfocus is a bitch and a half.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
It's what do you mean it's been 12 hours and I haven't eaten in 2 days? Not that anybody look at me and ever think that I would do that, but it happens sometimes.
Video games are always one of those things that activate my hyperfocus, especially a new good one.
Mm-hmm.
Because the next thing it is 12 hours or something like that. A really good hyperfocus will do that. There are times where I'm focusing on something just enough to the point where I listen to my stomach. But to be fair, if there's one bodily function that I've ever listened to my entire life,
So
and
your
what
bladder?
eventually, well, actually, it's my stomach. I'll ignore my bladder until like it becomes problematic. That'll be a whole different problem as I get older.
Yeah.
But no, like it's part of the reason probably why I have type 2 diabetes is because I've always listened to my stomach.
Mm.
And so that's the one thing, the one thing that will pull me away. That and the sound of someone chewing in my general vicinity. Those two things that might consider my focus shattered.
Personal hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once my focus is shattered, I'd rather die. It's been 30 minutes. 30 like in in a couple jobs I've ever had. I've had a saying that it depends on where you work with me and whether or not how much you like it or not.
Sure.
And as you look at it, like, oh man, it's only 11, and it's usually followed by like, well, what time did you think it was? Like, I thought it was 2. Like, we've been here an hour, and I thought I was been here 4 hours. Like, I would rather die
Oh man.
than just have that focus drag out.
Yeah. Man, I feel you on that one.
It is it's painful. But to get to the other half of the question you didn't guess, so in our limited interactions online,
Hmm.
I always got the impression of you as kind of a radio DJ.
Ooh.
Just because just the way that you put your words down, and the fact that you're a little bit of a community gatherer even within that little community.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it is I now knowing that you're a creator and getting to know you a little bit better, I don't think I was that far off the mark.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Go ahead. Get your question
so
out.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say so knowing how that impression that you gave off to at least me, how does that make you feel?
Well, it feels like that maybe I'm projecting the thing that at least half of the thing that I want to project. Um, Obviously the equipment helps. The pictures that I put out, like even my profile pic on the same Discord that we are, it looks very radio DJ,
I
right?
think that's what helped.
Yeah. I have a compression mic in front of me instead of one of these, but still, like, it looks like I'm definitely in the middle of it. Definitely wasn't posed. I don't know. No, that was all in the moment, I promise. Me and myself in that little room.
Yeah.
But ever since I was young, I was told, by young, I mean probably around like 14, 15. That's the time when I got my first job. And so interaction with, people who don't know you. And one of the things that all of these people said in that small little town of Union, South Carolina, was, "You have a voice for radio." It was always the old people. Like there were barely any like people who were my age or slightly older who were really talking to me like that. They're all there to get the burgers. They don't want to talk to me. But the old people would all say that. And I say old because they were probably like 40, right? But at that time I'm thinking, oh my God, you're old, you're aging. But so I guess that kind of got into my head. And out of all the footage that I've ever edited of myself, I've gotten to love my voice and the way that it actually uh especially when I'm on a roll, when there's not a lot of filler words coming out and everything, there is a good steady stream of consciousness that seems to actually grab onto people, that actually gets a good conversation going, or in the case if I'm a manager, it gets people pointed in the right direction without making them feel like they're being pushed. It actually makes them feel like, hey, we're all part of this process together. And if you want to talk about somebody who is doing that, somebody who is broadcasting their voice to like, hundreds, thousands, millions, depending on what their platform is, I guess a good DJ is definitely doing that. A good personality will get people on their side pretty quickly. And I've tried to not really push who I am. I just constantly just exude the same personality, especially over videos. And that personality is, yeah, it has gained a little community, a little following, some places more than others. TikTok is obviously the largest one for me right now, and I'm trying my best to build it in other places because if that ship goes down burning, dude, I don't want to go down with it. I want to be able to go to another ship and go, all right, everybody, this way. So like Instagram, YouTube, stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but also the way my voice is, I was born in Oklahoma, and I have lived most of my life in the southern states, but I don't have much of a southern lit at all, unless I'm talking like lilt, unless I'm talking about certain things, and I'm around people who I've been with all my life, like the family that I first married into with my ex-wife. Everybody there is like mountain southern, like they're the thick, very thick southern accents, and I'll kind of chameleon my way into the way that they sound. But overall, I've got a pretty flat accent, which I think helps when it comes to this kind of format. Uh,
Yeah.
I babbled on a lot. I hope I answered your question.
You did, and there's even some like I can relate to it in certain ways. Because my southern accent didn't really come out till I was older.
Mm,
I have just a little bit of one now, but speaking of your voice, like I was selling insurance some years ago. Very,
oh yeah.
very, very brief, very brief. But one of the people that was getting trained with me at the time was a former executive with GM. And she gave me some really good advice with my voice. And I think she gave me the advice that, or the observation, not advice, but
Okay.
that I have I have a voice that it can establish trust. But
Nice.
just because it's not very harsh, and I don't in real life I don't talk that much. But that I should also be careful because it's almost not maybe not sing-songy because I don't think I have a sing-songy voice. Uh, but
Mm,
if I can drone on a little bit and it would put someone to sleep.
okay.
So it was like, hey, this is a strength for you talking, but here's also like a pitfall to be careful of.
Gotcha.
And kind of using that as a little bit of a segue, uh, being that we both interview people to online, you
Mhm.
have a little bit more experience than I. Well, more experience, not a little bit more. I've only done 3 of these. Uh, that, but who would you consider the greats online of interviewing, or not even online, but interviewing people? Like, who would you consider like a great interviewer?
Okay, so the first person that comes to mind right now, and maybe it's only the first because I've watched them so much, is mythical chef Josh Shar, I think it is. He does I mean, he's known for a good little bit over there at the mythical entertainment thing, obviously uh as a chef who creates like wild things, even though he's had no culinary training, and his mouth will go a mile a minute. He's very entertaining. He's zany at best, but he also has this wonderful show called Last Meals, which he invites people from normally from the entertainment center, different types of entertainment. Like here recently, he's had a wrestler, an MMA fighter. He's had Tom Hanks on the show. He's had Post Malone. He's had a whole bunch of people, and the whole thing is they get in there, they tell him what their last meal would be, and he has it made fresh in the kitchen right across the way while everybody else while they're having a conversation. And the matter of fact way that he talks, you could tell that there's a loose conversation structure that they start off with, but he allows for rabbit holes.
Hmm.
And the way that he digs in, that he has the background information of the person that he's talking to, including some like obscure stuff, like stuff that they did in their childhood. If they've put it out there in memoirs or something like that, like he's brought all of this in, and he has made an excellent groundwork for somebody to just build a beautiful interview on, and to talk about life, death, and failure and success. And it ends off, they've got a full belly. Good conversation happens over food anyway, so that right there was brilliant. And then it just ends off, what's your last words? And then, I mean, that's the conversation. It takes like 45, 50 minutes, something like that, sometimes longer if they've got more to say. Beautiful way of laying down an interview. And then, people like this, they've learned how to do that by watching what would be considered the more well-known greats, the ones that have set up in past generations. Thinking Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey, Oprah Winfrey to a less point because there's more entertainment quotient sometimes. But then some of those she gets down and asks like the really real questions, and like you can tell there's a communication between the couches. Um, and Conan O'Brien.
I can see it.
Conan O'Brien is a great interviewer because, like, sure, like there's cue cards, right? But he knows how to accentuate what would be even a more serious story with a little bit of humor zing, because that humor makes things stick in people's brains a
Sure.
lot easier. So that's the top part of my list, I would say.
I think the only thing I would add, because I've seen the thumbnail for Last Words. I think Gordon Ramsay was on one.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I
that was a big one.
yeah, I didn't watch it. I'll have to with your recommendation, but the one
You
I would
should.
add is Sean Evans from Hot Ones.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh, he is. I spent in the weeks getting ready for my first interview and subsequent interviews. I've watched that a lot, just because he's very very good at this. But more importantly, he led me to a quote that I forget who it was. And I'm gonna kick myself for forgetting who it was because I tried to remember who it was. But the quote is, "You're only interesting to the level that you're interested."
oh yeah,
I think that resonated with me, and I find it to be very true. It's, whether it in normal life, doing something like this. So, if you're talking about your personal experience and I'm just deadpanned over here like this, no one's gonna watch this. Uh, Not that a whole lot of people watch this as it is now, but it'd be 0 or 1 instead of,
sure,
a couple hundred.
right,
Uh, so I think that's something that, hey, I learned something, and that's just a life lesson. And
yeah.
it's
Um, no, I mean you're absolutely right. Which is why I chose the subject of my podcast, talking to people about loss and whatnot. Because not only do I like talking to people about the more serious parts of their life, um, because it brings out the true part of them, whether that part be manic or depressive or hopelessly optimistic, as was the case of one of my interviews. um it was interesting. It made me want to make different questions other than I put on paper, and I think that's a huge part too. If you're willing to diverge with that person,
right.
that shows that, yeah, you're interested.
Mhm.
And you start bringing out your own little stream of consciousness. You start wanting to add your little bit of flavor between the conversations. It's all about riffing, man. If you can find somebody to riff with on a good interview, it's good stuff.
For real. I think one of my biggest fears on doing one of these is just getting one word answers and then running out of questions. And it's just like, and
Oh, that's a nightmare.
as I was telling Sam, the first one is like, because we only got about we did about 30 minutes and only got about halfway through my questions. I was like, my questions aren't. It's just something to talk about. I don't have to finish them all.
Sure.
And then the one I did last week, it was supposed to last 30 minutes. It lasted an hour.
Oh, wow.
Though I've known that guy for not as long as Sam, but he was an EOD tech in the army, so he was telling stories about that sort of stuff.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
and then you again preempted one of my questions. You guessed it again.
Aha.
You must have got my notes.
Two interviewers interviewing each other. That's what it's all about.
For sure. And it's there has to be some kind of mind train there. But just out of nowhere, that was my next question, is about your podcast and why you chose that.
Sure.
You've answered my question already, so I'll kind of hop that one over.
Okay.
And you've touched on being what it means to you to be a content creator and where you want to go with it.
Hmm.
But what got you started?
Loss. It's all circular, baby. It's circular. Let's just say circular.
Tickler?
I can never say that word right. So, if anybody's watching this that also has seen any of my other content, you may have heard this story before, but just buckle in. It's the same story, and I like telling it. So, my mom passed away in 2016, and around that time, there was some serious gravel being thrown on the path of my marriage. Things were getting pretty choppy, and eventually that ended, and we both realized that we were better friends than spouses. And I mean, of course, it sucked, and no divorce is actually just like, yay, we did it.
Right.
So that's going on at the same time that one day I wake up, mom had passed away the night before. The nursing home, I mean, she wasn't that old, but we can get into the reasons why she was in a nursing home later. They call me and it's like, your mother passed away peacefully in her sleep last night. COPD eventually claimed her, and I was like, okay, that sucks. So a whole lot of stuff happened around then. I'm trying my best to cope with it. And so what I started doing was taking these like 45, 50-minute walks along the trails that were in our area. And at the end of it, my brain would be going, you know, every which way. I mean, you got the ADHD, you know how brains do, especially if you're in a quiet space. And so I would choose the most interesting line of thought, make a quick little video of it. It was called Sittin with Michael, and put it up on a not YouTube page, Facebook page, and just let my friends see it. And they really kind of liked that. They liked the stream of consciousness and everything that was going on inside my brain. And then eventually, out to them, they're like, "Oh man, we really feel it. We really see your emotional process." And so I was like, "Well, maybe there's something here." And so I tried to make longer form videos, like something around 10, 15 minutes. The editing process, the planning, and everything like that was ridiculous. It was just taking me way too long. And uh from that point, and then talking to other people, some people tell me, hey, you're better off in short form videos. 2020 hits, and everybody's on TikTok. And so I'm like, all right, if short form videos seem to be my thing, I'll go to TikTok. Didn't have a lot of traction until I started doing these videos that were actually bringing people in, like, because I would take their names and just run it through the speech to text or text to speech, and
Mhm.
then like people love that. They were like, "Hey, you're paying attention to me. You actually said my name and everything. That's cool." And so I wanted to do something more with my brand and actually connect with more people, because I really like that. I guess maybe I didn't have a lot of communication and community like that when I was younger. And so I was like, I just feels really good. I feel like I'm doing something. I feel like I'm putting out positivity out there into the world. Workshopped my name, got it to Sittin with You. I'm really good at finding names that don't exist anywhere else, because no one else had that. And so every other platform that I've ever jumped on, Sitting with You has been available, and it's been growth. Maybe slow, sometimes a little plateau, but
Mhm.
it's been good. And I'm not judging myself by the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm judging myself by the way I feel after I get off alive. Like, it's cool if somebody throws me money, but it's
Mhm.
really cool if I have like 90% of the people on there actually having a conversation with me, instead of me just going, your username reminds me of a hot, fresh sun. And I hate those kind of lives. I hate those. It's like, what does your profile pic say about no, man? I don't want that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about why you don't want to watch the movie Scarface. Like, let's start like a completely irreverent conversation about anything. And that's magic in its own way. And I think that's what I've always been trying to capture. After mom
Hmm.
passed away, I just a little bit of magic.
I think that's good. So, speaking of, well, going off of words are hard.
Mhm.
Going off of
You're right about
your
that.
interactions with commenters. So do you have like a specific positive comment, or maybe a specific negative comment that stuck with you?
Uh, Negative comments for me are just a way for me to exercise my kill 'em with kindness reaction, which is something I guess I learned in customer service.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
because They really it's something that you should they don't teach you, but it's something that you should bring with you. Because that's what makes you kind of more of a standout person when it comes to customer service. Like people tend to react to you better, whether you're a manager or you're just the person behind the register. Um, so I there's only been one negative comment I think that was on a video. Okay, I don't think it was on live, but it was just on a video um that kind of stuck with me. And it's silly because I know I don't have the best singing voice. Like every once in
Mhm.
a while I'll bust out a few notes that actually sound good together, but overall music always sounds better in my head other
Mm.
than my voice. Just my speaking voice, I guess it's because I've trained my speaking voice. I've never trained my singing voice.
Right.
And somebody was like kind of dogging me for the way that I was sounding when I was doing a singing video. And the reason I was singing is because it was an old song I learned in chorus class in 4th grade, and it's the only one that I've known for all these years later. So that one kinda got with me. But the most positive, um, ones that I've ever received have been, uh, I remind them of a favorite person from them, normally from school. Like, you remind me of my science teacher. You remind me of my course teacher, math. I've reminded so many people of so many different types of teachers.
Mm. I
And
can kind of see it.
right. And the thing is that I have, I have that teacher too in my brain that I think I kind of gravitate towards people who act like her. People who are taking a look at everybody around them, who's listening to everybody around them, who maybe doesn't like give to the conversation, but facilitates the conversation, just like keeps it moving along and actually seems to kind of care about what's happening around them.
Mhm.
I love that kind of person. And so like whenever I happen to come across somebody like that in social media, like I tend to stop and listen to.
Mhm.
So the fact that I'm bringing that out at all, like I'm giving people like good memories of people who gave them like a safe space or a good space to learn or anything like that. Dude, I don't feel like
It,
it gets much better than that for me.
it's a good one. Yeah. Uh, there's a guy, I don't know that he's on TikTok. He might just be on Instagram, but it's like Pop Bruce Johnson or something like that. He's
Okay.
the old guy that always wants, like, he gives life advice in the events of, like, he walks up with 2 cups of tea and
Oh,
sets one in
nice.
front of his camera and then talks about it.
Okay, I've
Uh,
seen those. I didn't know the name of that. Yeah, okay.
yeah, he went away, but he came back just the other day, and I don't know why, but you're always wondering because he's an older guy, and you're like, oh,
Sure.
okay, I hope you were okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
right?
especially because I work for a nonprofit that deals with, like, I don't work directly with the people, but I work kind of in a support role.
Okay.
For it's in Georgia, but it's for people, it's for elderly and disabled people underneath the poverty line, making sure that they stay out of nursing homes.
Oh, okay.
So interesting that there's that little bit of confluence of, like, your story and the what I
Yeah.
do, and it's
Yeah.
even if it's just like the minorest of things. Um, but I guess one of my last questions, I only have a couple more.
Oh, go ahead.
So what, and this one might be a big one. And I didn't get a chance to ask Sam this question yet, but I
Ooh.
hopefully will. So what would you say, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self if you had a time machine?
Okay. So let me just preface this by saying that one of the biggest emotional tear jerk moments that I've ever had in therapy was the moments where I get to talk to my younger self. Um, and I'm glad you went to 16. 16 isn't as bad. She said, little 5-year-old me, and the tears just started falling after I was like saying what I wanted to say to my childhood self. Because especially after I wrote my book, because there was a lot of things, a lot of memories that kind of came to me as I could only remember them. Who knows if they were actually the way they happened? I was 5 freaking years old.
Right.
16 years old. I'm still doing things to try to kind of fit in with the masses, even though I had found my circle of geeks that we all kind of didn't really care about how we looked or reacted. We were all just there to, have fun, have some stupid jokes, play some relatively violent games. Um, but I had also I was 1 year into my job at that point. And I think the one thing I would have told myself was get out of that job and go find if someone else is willing to hire a 16-year-old, which it's small little country town.
Mhm.
There were so many chances I probably could have found. And get out of that job and go find maybe another restaurant. I wouldn't mind working for another restaurant. Restaurants were good to me up until the point where they weren't.
Mm.
But I was working in the same place with my mom and dad, in the same little greasy spoon that was owned by one of the more influence. The guy had a lot of influence over the town. Like he knew people in the courthouse and people who ran drugs at the same time, and he would have meetings with both. Um, and so he just owned this restaurant, and he just kept pumping out food, and it was good food until again it wasn't. But working with my parents, um, I don't know exactly. I don't know how much of a wall was maintained between the child and the adults. I think it kind of blurred there. In fact, I remember having a couple of times where mom looked at me and she's like, I'm your mother. You listen to me. I'm like, we're both employees in the same restaurant. Like, I don't have to. Oh, I'm sorry. I know what I have to do for work. You know what you have to do. You're not my boss. And, you know, there was some back and forth, some words that were said. Mom was still my favorite parent after all. I don't think I lost love with them, but I think I lost a little bit of my childhood, a little bit of my teenagehood. I think I could have done some things that were a little bit different that would have shaped what it meant to be young. Because even going all the way up until 19, 20, I still had the mentality of like, I have to do this to take care of my family. Um,
Oh, that hits real hard, close to home.
Yeah. Uh, and it's always interesting when I find people who actually do that, because some people look at me when I start oversharing and telling them about how I felt, especially with a retrospective. At that point, it's whatever. I have to work. I got to make money. We got to help
Mhm.
everybody. It was fine. It was regular. But when I start like telling people some of this, some people just look at me and go, "Oh, honey, are you okay?" I'm like, I'm okay. I'm perfectly fine now."
That was fun until you asked me that question.
You did this. You opened the door.
You unzipped
Uh,
me, to use a an Always Sunny reference.
oh yeah. God, I love Always Sunny.
Oh,
Brilliant,
it's so good. It's so
brilliant
good.
show. Um, so yeah, go work somewhere else. Or better yet, don't go work somewhere else. Go be a kid. You're still 16. You don't realize exactly how much you're turning into an adult.
It happens
No,
very fast.
right.
I fear it happens faster these days.
Yeah, yeah. I just had a conversation over one of my lives when we were talking about somebody brought up the Dan, whatever the heck his last name, the director over there at Nickelodeon, and all the shit that's happening around him. Um, are you aware of this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen it, but I know it's bad, and
Yeah, it's not
it's
great.
it's one of those things I don't really want to know because I have to live with that knowledge.
So I read a really wonderful book that helped shape my memoir as well. It's called "I'm Glad My Mom's Dead" by Jeanette McCurdy,
Mhm.
and she was one of the people in I think it was iCarly. I don't remember what show it was on. It might have been iCarly. But she never mentioned the guy by name. She always called him the creator,
Mhm.
and had horrible things to say about him, that because he was just being horrible in general. Like, when like she was lying, she was just saying what she was experiencing. And I knew that that was going to open floodgates, and here we are. A couple of years later, floodgates open, things are happening. But there was a reason I brought him up. Damn it.
Happens to me too. I hate that.
Yep. So let's just say, like, with oh yeah, with all that situation happening, where they brought it up in the live, and they were like, "Well, what do you think about that?" And I'm like, child labor's a bitch, and it shouldn't be going on." And there was like a beat that kind of skipped in the chat, and then everybody went, "Oh my god, you're right." I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it's what it is. It's basically child labor, and these kids grow up on stage, and who knows how much of their adulthood that they lose. Which is why I think Smosh is such a wonderful channel, because a lot of the people who are on there were on those kind of shows in general. And now here they are, 30, 35 years old, and they get the chance to professionally live out their kid,
Mhm.
you know, act like a kid
Mm.
and still be serious about it at the end of the day. And I'm like, Jesus, the balance on that.
Well,
That's gotta be cathartic as all hell.
I mean, if you need a poster child for it, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
that
definitely.
guy went through it.
And look at him now.
Mhm.
Macaulay's like all polished and grown up, and
Yeah,
he's
I mean,
smiling more these days.
he came back around, and he
I'm so
Shia
happy
LaBeouf
for him.
had it rough for a couple years, and I don't
Yeah.
know that he's gone full circle yet. But I'm
I
rooting
don't think
for
so.
him.
I
Uh,
want I think Shy is gonna come around like Robert Downey Jr. one day. Like there's gonna be that role that's gonna bring him back, it's gonna solidify him. He's gonna be like, okay, shit, this is what life is about. This is what I wanted, you know. That'd
right.
be nice. I'd love to see that happen.
I I personally, even though I don't telegraph it very much, but I personally really like a comeback story.
Yeah. Yeah, so do
It's
I.
it's it's the most cathartic, and I think at least for me, it's like, man, one day I'll have one of those. All right.
uh
So last question,
yeah.
and this will end with you plugging yourself.
Ooh.
So where do you see your content going in the next year, next 5 years?
All right, so the next year, if I'm following my trends properly, uh TikTok is going to go either A, through a change, or it's going to go through an exodus because of fear of change. And so that's gonna. I feel like there's going to be a wave of going to somewhere else. Either it's going to be a new app that does short form videos that maybe doesn't focus on music, focuses on something else. Maybe not the next Vine. Nothing's ever going to be the next Vine. People want it so bad, but it's not coming back.
It's dead,
It is.
and this nostalgia will never live up to it.
I'll tell you what, though, people love Vine-like videos. I have something called a 6 episode playlist on my thing called Vine Redux, where I purposely make bad vines, and it actually gained a little traction. I might revisit it. I don't know.
I
But
miss the Vine days.
yeah, yeah, Vine like ran so everything else could fly. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, God. Anyway, I could reminisce about that all day. Uh, but I see myself focusing on either another short form video app, like maybe doubling down on Reels, just for that kind of content. But then learning how to blog and do better at this kind of situation, because I really enjoy this. One of the best interviews I ever had, Sam was actually at my house. It was
Mm.
the only in-person interview that I did for the whole season of It's Your Loss, and it was wonderful being able to sit in the same room with the person, have lunch afterwards, and everything like that. It was such a good feeling. So I want to do more of that. Um, and also I got to finish my second book. The second book's already, the first draft's already 2/3 of the way done. I got to get it done. I stopped because I knew if I tried to do a book and a podcast at the same time, I'd lose something. So that's why I was glad to get the first season out in the 4 months that I did. Um, so that's my first year. So let's say 5 years down the road, podcasting's not hard. There's a lot of people out there who are willing to talk about their loss. Losses happen all the time. People try to come up to me and say, "Hey, can I be on your podcast? I just lost my mom." No, I will not do that to you. You need time for scar tissue to grow before we start tap dancing on that. But I want to keep that going. It's Your Loss has been cathartic for me, and it's been cathartic for other people as well. Uh and I get to ask some really hard hitting questions. One of the biggest ones being, is one of my favorites, is like, "Are you glad your mom's dead?" That's a huge question. And uh the answer may surprise you. No, she said yes, but you could find out why. If you go listen to It's Your Lost podcast, starting live on April 22nd, 2024.
Heck yeah.
Um, so I really see more of that. I don't know how many more books I have in me. The universe that I've started creating, that I started creating in the Navy is still alive in this little black binder that I have. So there's much more stuff to pull out of it. But we'll see how I feel about after finishing my first book out of that universe on how much more I want to write. But yeah, man. I'd love to keep the interview train alive.
Yeah, it's enlightening. You learn something about yourself through someone else. It's, vicarious learning through a conversation. I really
Yeah,
enjoy it.
definitely. Definitely. Uh well, yeah, so I feel like okay, so we reached the end of your questions, right?
Yeah.
All
So
right.
we'll transition over to yours.
Okay. Well, do you have an outro?
I don't.
You don't? You
No,
should
I don't.
you should work on that.
Really, I mean, I say that I've been a content creator for less than a year.
Okay.
I started last May. Sam convinced me to move to TikTok in August. Uh, he describes my immediate rise as really fast, and then I plateaued. And then that's really
Sure.
that's kicked me in my motivation really hard. So I haven't gone back to doing what I was doing.
Well,
Mostly,
you'll see plateaus in a lot of things, not only in this, but like also like body rhythms as well. Plateaus are normal.
yeah. It's I think in 60 days I got 1,000 followers,
Woo.
and in the 4 or 5 months following that I've gotten 100.
Okay.
So
Hey,
it
at least there's a
it
upwards
hasn't gone
trend,
down. It hasn't gone down.
That's good.
And not to hammer it at my viewers. And when I do go back to do what I was doing, it basically gets ignored, and I think that's the algorithm. Sam and I talked about that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that the algorithm's a fickle beast.
yeah. So I'm uploading these to YouTube. Instagram gets no traction for me. It's there, but uh, it's like the to use maybe an old and maybe not so appropriate. It's stepchild.
Yeah.
But even though it was the first one, but we'll see how it works. If I'm not completely convinced that TikTok's going to go away, it might change. I
Yeah.
think it'll change some way.
I'm seeing a change in the future, yeah.
Yeah. Regardless of whether you agree or not, I see points for both, but I don't see a banning. But that's a whole other interview that I think maybe a
Sure.
roundtable might be good for.
Speaking of another interview, Delta, I would love to do this again.
Yeah.
I love being a part of other people's shows too, because as much as I like talking about loss and trying to keep it light and heavy all at the same time and walking that tightrope, I also sometimes just like, seeing what other people are about. So by all means, let's do this again.
Yeah. And for anyone watching me, yours is the first show I've ever done other than my own. So
Hey,
I'm excited. I don't know how good. Well, we're gonna see how good I am at answering questions instead of asking questions, because that's a whole different skill set.
it's all going to be a great conversation. We'll love it. All
All
right,
right.
so we'll switch over here in just a minute. But D, this has been great talking with you, man.
Absolutely. We should do it again.
Yes, sir.